Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox, here to remind you that this is your season. This is your season of self discovery. And with that comes deconstructing from everything that no longer serves you. And I am your unapologetic deconstruction coach to help guide you through that process. Join me today, and we are going to unpack some things that you have been pressing me to kind of reveal or expose or share with you, and I believe I'm ready to do that. Have you ever had one of these days where you get up and you're feeling so exhilarated, you have a great big cup of coffee, and you sit and you chat with your spouse, your partner, whoever, your dog, kids, whatever, and you're feeling so terrific, and then with that, uh, immediately after you know get all suited up to go for a walk, you're still feeling exhilarated, and you go walking, you walk 5 miles, you feel really great about yourself. You feel real great about your thought process, and your energy, your strength, and all of that. And then suddenly you start feeling a whole lot better. You start becoming so mindful and so intentional. You start feeling so good about yourself. You don't know really where that is coming from, but that was my experience today. And as a matter of fact, it was my experience yesterday as well, and the day before, and the day before. And the more I think of it, what I think of is that it really has to do with my own mindset. That's how I want to feel every day. But to tell you the truth, there are some days that I could just, especially on the weekends, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, I would just want to stay in bed and chill out, relax, and just hang out in bed. Sometimes I allow myself to do that, but sometimes I'm like, no, you got to get up, simply because I have objectives. And one of those, of course, is self care, and I am serious about that. During the wintertime, I kind of hibernate a little bit, but then comes spring and summer, you really want to get out there and, get moving and so forth. So I am feeling exhilarated as it is. But of course, time caught up on me, because there is today the selection of the Pope, the new Pope. So that's interesting news. All that pageantry and all that kind of stuff, I find it quite interesting. So anyway, we're going through this journey of self discovery simply because we need to unpack. We need to get back to that place. We need to come back home to our true self. We need to come back to that place where we are functioning organically. We're not performing, we're not pretending, we're not faking anything. We can be our true, genuine, real, organic self, and be authentic in our delivery, be authentic in every way we express ourselves, and so forth. And that can only happen when you really get to know who you are. Because if you haven't gone through this journey of self-discovery, then you're probably living an identity that was imposed upon you from a child, and now that you're an adult, you're living to please people. You're afraid of what people are going to think or say, and you're just really performing. You want people to like you. You want to fit in. So we do a lot of aerobics. We do a lot of acts. We behave differently and so forth. But we want to get back to that place where we can be our true, authentic selves. We can walk and fulfill our self expression. We can be who we are, and not to be intimidated or feel some kind of way when we are around certain people. No, we want to be able to be ourselves all the time. And that is part of this journey that we're going through. Now, when I said earlier about to deconstruct from everything that no longer serves you, there are so many things, so many of us, or so many folks, I'm constantly doing inventory, and I'm mindful of my thoughts, my behavior, my practices, the things that I um think about and the way I behave and the way I do things, I want to make sure that I have abandoned the 20th century, because a lot of things that we did in the 20th century no longer applies to us in the 21st century. I remember years ago we used to, of course we've been in the 21st century for a long time now, but I remember years ago we used to mail our bills. We used to write a check and mail it out. Well, today we don't do that. We do everything online. You pay your bills online. When you go shopping, you have to take cash with you, two, three, $400, and you go shopping and so forth. Not today. Today you take, you don't even have to take your credit card, because you have Apple Pay, or I don't know, Google Pay, Android Pay, whatever phone you have. You can just, tap it and just hover it over that little pie shaped bar thing, and it takes your money out of your debit card or whatever it is. For me, it's my debit card. And so things have changed. And I've read recently that in China, they even have where you don't have to have any kind of device with you. You don't have to have your phone, you don't have to have your card, because your digital code, your digital print pays for the things that you buy. So that is like, but of course, China, they are like 30 years ahead of us. Well, when I say ahead of us, here in the West, they're like way ahead. So kudos to China. I embrace technology. I embrace the things that are new, the things that are innovative. I embrace all of it, because it's progress, it's development, it's advancement, it's being avant-garde, just way ahead of your time. So I do try to keep up and stay relevant, and I encourage you to do the same. And that has to do with us growing into ourselves, getting to know who we are, and coming into your real authentic self, and expressing yourself accordingly. Now, for those of you that have asked, and so some of you, well, label me as bold and audacious and courageous and confident and so forth and all of that, and for me it's kind of like a compliment, because those are not the thoughts that I have. That is just simply who I am. But I guess I got to this place simply by just being me. The more you get to know yourself and you begin to feel comfortable in your skin, and not be concerned about external influences, or criticism or judgment and all of that, you just are. You don't have to pretend, you don't have to perform, you don't have to fake, make believe, you don't have to do any of that. You are just yourself. And you may fit in better in some circles better than other circles, and you will discover where you fit the best. And of course, you will be around the people where you are celebrated and not tolerated. You'll become so sensitive to those emotions, to those experiences, and you'll be able to. I know for me, to feel, sense, read energy. You begin to feel it and read it, and where uh, what's up. You get to know what's up, what is up. So for those of you that are asked, that have asked things like, how did you get to that place? And what has really been my, need to open this thing here. What has been my experience, step by step, in deconstructing from my religious background? And I know that I have shared quite a bit, but I have reserved a big part of it, simply because it is so personal, but it's what got me through. And I'm going to share that with you today so that you can know. But it's not to tell you what to do. It's simply to share with you what my experience has been. And this is not meant to offend anyone. This show, I always share that this show is not for everyone. It's not meant to offend anyone. If you feel any kind of way uncomfortable listening to what I have to share, then you're, welcome to use your ability to scroll or disconnect, turn it off, whatever works best for you. But it is for you guys, for you ladies that are saying, we need to know how, just because you want to get to that place as well. But guess what? The same way, I have a brain, you have a brain, and we all have the ability to think and think critically. We have the ability to think. So we're going to go through some thinking situations here. Now, I shared with you earlier that it's been 16 years. And, when I talk about deconstructing from religious indoctrination, I'm talking about the Christian religion, because that's the religion that I was affiliated with, that I subscribed to for a couple of for a long time. And when I was already in religion, I was already religious when I met my husband. He came from another type of spiritual persuasion, where there was really no, they just lived and enjoyed life. There's no guilt, no judgment, no criticism, none of that. So he came happy. And I dragged him into my circle, which is evangelical, with all the rules and the whole bunch of stuff, the sin, salvation, uh, heaven, hell, all of that. And you're good for nothing and you're bad, you're sinning, all of those thoughts. Now, he never bought into it, simply because, he's not a man that you can just, he has a mind of his own. And even though he would come to church, we would go to church together, but he never really bought into that whole ideology. And, he never felt any kind of way and so forth. I didn't either. I can't say that I felt like unworthy or anything, even though that's what we are taught, unless you get born again and so forth. But my dad, when I was younger, said to me that I'm deserving of a good life, and I took that to heart, and I just took that I am deserving of everything that's good and so forth. So, but I did subscribe to that, to Christianity for many years. Now, when I left, which was 2009, 16 years ago, when we left, because my husband, came to a point where he said, I'm done. We need a different lifestyle. We need to live totally different. And surprisingly, our lives, uh, I can't say, well, yeah, it has changed somewhat, but what really has changed is our mindset toward life and everything. And with that comes, different associations, different friendship, and so forth, the way we see things. So when we left, the word deconstruction was not a thing at that time. It was not trending. It wasn't. So my transformation from being a religious person to the freedom that I enjoy today, it was just by, I don't even know if you want to say by osmosis, but it just, when I left, I had to really do a deep dive to make sure that I knew where I stood. If there was any kind of spirituality of me, I needed to know, so that I could walk in that joy, peace, freedom, contentment, and all of that. Those things were important to me. And then, of course, to have a good relationship with my husband, we needed to be on the same plane, the same platform, the same mindset, if you will, so that we would have a harmonious type relationship, and, not pulling against each other. So I had to do the deconstruction, if you will. If it was today, we would have called it deconstruction from indoctrination, religious indoctrination. But back then, I didn't know what to call it. I just knew that I had left religion and was, going on a journey of self discovery and so forth. And some of you may remember that I have shared in the past. Those of you that follow my show, that I shared things like, even when I was a Christian, I was true to myself, and I was in my time of devotion and prayer and meditation and all that. I was raw. I was raw with God, the God of the Bible, the God that I serve, the God that I imagine. I was raw. I was authentic. I was not afraid. And I remember having conversations with God that said, where I express this life. When I read the Bible and see all the atrocities that God had done, and killing babies, and having, starting wars, and doing all these things mainly in the Old Testament, and all of that, and then going through all this complexity of salvation and sending your son, and then this devil and hell and all that. And I had all these questions like, wait a minute, are you supposed to be a father? You creating a hell for your children, or anyone for that matter? Now I know that me as a person, as a human, that's not something that I would do at all. At all. I don't care. You may get locked up for life, but to put you in a burning flame, that's just not something that. And think about it yourself. You probably wouldn't do the same thing. You wouldn't do that. Think of you and your children. It doesn't matter how disobedient your children are. I know when I was younger and I was in boarding school, I got kicked out 3 times. The first time, my dad was able to get me back. The second time, he was able to get me back. Just talk to the administrator, the el gerente, the general, the finance person. Anyway, they got me back. He did whatever he had to do. The third time, they said, "That's it. She is too mischievous. We are not taking her back." And they put me on a plane and sent me home. Uh, I was in another country, and they sent me home. And my dad, instead of being, of course, he was like deeply disappointed. I thought he would have been angry. I thought he was gonna, just murder me, but that wasn't the case. My parents, they thought there was something wrong with me, and so they spent a lot of money with taking me to for mental health, psychology, to excuse me, to a psychologist. And then they realized there was nothing wrong with me. And when they put me in the local school right there in my community, a private school, I excel. So come to find out, I was just missing my mom, my dad, my environment and so forth. And I expressed it through being mischievous when I was in boarding school. The point is, my dad did not kill me. It didn't occur to him to kill me, or to put me, or in any mediocre school, or, well, no school is mediocre, but he still sought to put me in one of the best schools, and he sought out the best treatment for me if there was something psychologically wrong with me, which they discovered there wasn't. My point is, my dad is an ordinary man, and he's not even religious, but he sought to do the best for me, his child. So when I had these questions with God, had these conversations with God, and I would say, I don't really get that, and it just doesn't match up, and so forth. And in the Bible, you're seen as barbaric and maniacal and egotistical, narcissistic, and brutal, and doing wicked stuff. If you look at the Bible, if you read the Old Testament, unless you have confirmation bias, which always kicks in, you'll have cognitive dissonance. Where what you believe and what you see, they become conflicting, and some people, they just can't deal with that. But I would always ask, and I would be just raw, and I would say, I would tell God, first of all, I would express how boring this whole lifestyle is, because it wasn't in me. It just wasn't in me. I wanted to have fun, but that's all I knew. Well, I shouldn't say that, because before I got born again, I lived a different lifestyle, fun, and just really in my younger years, and just really embraced life in its fullest, embraced my humanity, loved, suffered disappointment, and loved, and so forth. And it was wonderful until I subscribed, started, got to this whole Christian circle. Somebody, it was one of those points where I had a vulnerable moment and got born again and so forth. Anyway, but I was always raw with God, and I would say, this whole thing, about heaven and whatever. I would say I don't want to go to heaven. And I would say, I don't want that. I don't want to spend eternity worshiping you, praising you. I don't want it. I don't want that. If there's a hell, then I'll go to hell. And I would say things like that. I would just be raw. And I'm telling you, of course, I can share that with anyone. Why? Because that's crazy. They would, excommunicate me from church or any kind of, and, I was in a leadership position while I was in church. Every church I mainly went to here in my community, two churches that I spent many years at. And in both churches, I was in a leadership position. So I can come out with those. Sorry about that. And I thought this was supposed to be on Do Not Disturb. So I was a leader in both churches that I attended. So these are things that I can share. These are things that I kept for myself. And that's why till now I could not even share this with you, but you have asked. And as I mentioned, I had these conversations with God because I would think in my mind that I had a relationship with God, which is a thing that a lot of people say today, a lot of Christians say today, because they know that there's such a stigma attached to Christianity, to get a bad rap just because of uh, all of the things that we see exposed, manifest from the religious people and so forth. So people say, well, I'm not religious. I am spiritual, or I have a relationship with God, not religion, not the church and all that. So in my mind, that's what my experience was. I was saying that I have a relationship with God and so forth, and I would share with this God my feelings, my thought, my opinion, my emotions. I was raw. I was raw as I pursued this whole thing of knowing who I am. And let me tell you, my friend, as I did that, as I endeavored to be honest and true and genuine and authentic and real with this God, again, it was an imaginary God that I had in my mind. Well, this God responded to me. And his response is really what set me free. Now, remember, the Bible says that we are made in his image and his likeness. That means we can think the way he thinks. And, however we think, there's validity to that. And we have the ability to think critically, even though the Bible says, lean not unto your own understanding. But the God that I dealt with said, in all you're getting, get understanding. You want to have understanding of everything, not just knowing, but the understanding of the workings of it. Because once you understand, it takes away the fear, it takes away guilt, it takes away, uh, self condemnation, it takes away self judgment, it takes away all of that once you understand, and it sets you free, like I am, to share what I'm sharing now and to live the life that I want. Well, God said, and I remember clearly, and you need to follow this to the end, because I am going to wrap it up. You need to follow it straight through. He said, as I went on to say that, I don't like this. I don't like this, this ritual, this thing, all these rules, these regulations. You can't do this, you can't do that, and all these, the pageantry, the performance, the praise, the worship, the ritual. I was just sick of it, going to church, you know, At one point, because that's what you know. You enjoy the people that you have that you fellowship with. But deep down on the inside, I wanted something else. So as I share that, so God responded. He said, "I'm sick of it. I am sick of it." That's what I'm hearing. Now, bear with me and follow me. He said, "I'm sick of it." And I'm like sick of, you know, and the God that, because we all have our idea of the God that we serve, worship, adore, praise, whatever. He said, "I am sick of it." He said, "I am sick of you looking for me in a book. Do you think you can find me in a book, in the pages of a book? If I need to talk to you, I won't talk to you through a book. Who gave you that book? And who said that I wrote that book? I will never be found in a book, which we call the Bible. So don't waste your time looking for me in a book from cover to cover. Don't waste your time looking for me in a book, because whatever I need to say to you, I will say it directly to you." And on the subject of prayer, he says, "Why are you praying to me? Why are you praying to me? There's no, why are you praying to me when you have the power, the ability to do things, to lead your life, to conduct your life? You have a mind to create. You have the power to create. So why are you praying? Why are you praying? Why are you asking? Why are you begging? Why are you pleading? Why?" And then when something happens, you subscribe to praise and worship. No, 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 no. When you get that job, it is you. You prepared yourself. You got the degree. You went to college. You have the skills. You have the knowledge. You have the expertise. You applied for the position. You went to the interview and you were selected. It is no different from someone that doesn't know me or doesn't claim to know me. There is no different. It is you. Understand the power that's within you. Now, listen, this is a dialogue that's going on between the relationship that I say I have with God. And he's saying, it is you. That house that you got, I didn't give you that house. You saved, you had the money, things lined up perfectly, and the opportunity came up. You happened to like it. The seller happened to like you, whatever, and you sign the contract, and the house is yours. I didn't give you that house. The car that you drive, I didn't give you that car. I didn't give you that car. Just like anyone else that would give away a car, somebody was moved to give you a car. The monies that you got, the $5,000 that was given to you, that wasn't me. That was just somebody's heart that was moved to give you that money. So think and have understanding of who you are, and stop ascribing things to me which doesn't even make any sense. Why do you lock yourself up within four walls every week? You can't find me in a church. You won't find me in a church. I'm not in any church. With all that noise and you praise and you worship and the ritual and the dancing and the hollering, and none of that moves me. Your praises consumes me. None of that reaches me. When you take care of yourself, Cynthia, remember, when you take care of yourself, that is praises to me. When you take care of yourself, self care, that is praises to me. When you go out into the world instead of locking yourself between four walls, when you go out into the world and into the, and enjoy the nature, the mountains, the ocean, the sea, people, your friends, your family, the dog, the sunshine, when you go out into the world and really absorb the beauty of the world, that is your praise. That is what I look at. When you extend kindness to your fellow human, that is the life that I see and applaud. Not some words, and God is saying, remember, follow me. God is saying, I'm not some narcissistic, egotistical, maniacal person that wants your everlasting praise and worship and all that dance and carrying on and that I'm not even there. God is saying, I'm not even there. I am not even in that presence because it consumes me. I am out into the world. I am out in the universe. I am out all among people and extending kindness and love and enjoyment and fun and contentment and having a good time. And when you think about heaven, Cynthia, who's told you about heaven? Have you seen anyone that's been to heaven and back? What is heaven? Who made that up? Who created heaven? What about heaven? When somebody dies, they die. I'm having this conversation with God. When somebody dies, they die. Who's told you about heaven? Who's told you? Who has sold you that there's a heaven? Streets of gold, gates of pearl, walls of agate. Who made that up? There's no such thing. I'm not in any of that. So don't live for heaven. Don't live for the afterlife. Enjoy your life now. And as far as hell, there's no such thing as hell. Now, Cynthia, would you send any of your kids, no matter how bad they are, you know, disappointing they are? Would you send any one of them to hell? No, there's no such thing. Forever to burn in eternity? Cynthia, get understanding. In all you're getting, get understanding. No such thing as hell. Does it even make sense? You, as a parent, if you're made in my image and my likeness, you, as a parent, would you do any harm to your children? And then talk about sacrifice. I don't need your sacrifice. I don't need this is God talking. I don't need your sacrifice. I don't need your praises. I don't need your money. That's a big I don't need your money. I don't need your money. I don't need 10%, 20%, 30%. I don't need your money. Your money is for you to enjoy the fruit of your labor. Take your money and invest it so that it can multiply, just like the guy in the book that was written by some men years ago. Take your money and invest your money. Take your money and give it to the poor. Give it to charity. Send your kids to college. Take your family on vacation. Your money is to be enjoyed. I do not need your money. None of it. I don't need your sacrifice. I don't need your praise. I don't need your worship. I don't need your money. I don't need rituals. I don't even understand what those rituals are. Who made those up and who told you that you had to do this, you had to do that, and one of the things that I asked that was really pressing because there's a lot of guilt and fear and so forth, and I one of the things that I had in my mind is the fear that people have of of God. Fear. It's like you approach him with fear, and you're begging, you're asking for this, that, the other. This fear of condemnation, fear of being judged, just fear. If you do something and it's against the credence, if it's against the doctrine, you're looked upon with disdain and critical eye, and you're judged and all that. And I had issues with all of that, and God was saying, it's like, live your life and do no harm to your neighbor. That's it. Live your life and do no harm to your neighbor. That's it. Why complicate your life? And I start asking about all these questions, that I had to do it privately. And I'm saying, and God, all this stuff about, you sending Jesus, and Jesus born of a Virgin Mary, and gone to the cross and died, crucified, and rose in three. I said, what? I said, all is that is, to me, it's madness. Why is all that necessary? If there are issues with sin and iniquity and all of that, then take care of the bad guy. Take care of, if there's a devil, take care of the devil. And God responds. Remember, this is a relationship. Follow me to the end. God responded and said, devil, who is the devil? Who created the devil? Who created a Satan, a Lucifer? Who created that? Do you think I'm going to create a devil to rule a universe that I create and do harm to my children? What kind of a father am I? Do you think I am? What kind of a father is that? What kind of a father is that? What kind of a monster is that? Because those are the words that I would use. I said, that's just monstrous. And then with people and their humanity, I would ask things like, you created us with passion, with desires, with biological feelings that we have. Our sexuality is part of our humanity. You created us with attraction, to be attracted to be to someone else. And then when we are attracted, then you restrict, you suppress our feelings. And what's that all about? What is that all about? You make us passionate, sensual, sensuous, and then you're telling us to suppress that. That, to me, God, again, that is just wicked, because you created us this way, but then you impose laws that says you can't do this, you can't do that, fornication and all that kind of stuff. And what? Wait till you get married. What if someone doesn't get married? What if someone never gets married by choice or by fate? They may not get married. So what are they supposed to do? Suppress that and then get all these psychological issues in their minds? And then if they submit to self pleasure, then they walk around guilty. Then they have to go ask for forgiveness. Why? Because they pleasured themselves. They pleasured themselves sexually. Why? Because we are humans. That's raw, my friend. That is raw, talking to the God that, I had in my mind, the imaginary God. And so God responded and says, who's told you all that? Who has told you all that? Who has told you what, who has said it's a sin? If for the one set of people it's a sin to eat pork, but then another set of people eat pork, it's not a sin. For one set of people it's you can't eat shrimp, but then this set of people, they can eat shrimp. Then there's the fabric thing, and then there's the all the vestures and the fabrics and all of those rules and laws and turn the other cheek and all of that, the forgiveness and all of that. I said, God, it is madness, and I don't want any part of it. I was like emptying myself to the God that I had in my mind, that I had worshiped and praised. Because, when I was in religion, I remember that I would get up like early, like at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would have my time of devotion. I would just spend so much time just, reading the Bible and doing stuff. And sometimes I would go walking. I remember I used to live in a place where there was beautiful, anyway, place that you could walk. And I would leave my house like at 5 o'clock. I would get up from 4 to 5, and I would sit and read my Bible and so forth. And then at 5 o'clock, I would go walking and just doing all of that. And it's just because I thought that's what you had to do, because I wanted to be in good graces with God. But after a while, you start asking questions like, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. That's when you start this deconstructing thing, when you start asking questions about your life. Now, some people are so immersed into religion that they have a fixed mind. They are not moving from that. But for those of you that have a growth mindset, then you ought to know what's going to work for you. This is how I did it. And these are the questions that I had of this God. And this is how I emptied myself to let him know that's just not what I wanted. I wanted to live now. I wanted to enjoy myself now. I wanted to be who I am. I wanted to go back to my original identity, and not an identity that was imposed upon me by the church, by just society, because all of that, it shapes you into someone that you're not. And until you come to the place where you get to know yourself, you'll walk around being the way people have shaped you into be, by the information that they have given you. And, information you need to know for yourself, because when you know the truth for yourself, that's the truth that sets you free. So I went on, and I talked about being afraid. I talk about, and then God said to me about renewing your mind. That my mind needed to be transformed so that I could be renewed, transform, change from all that stuff. Looking for Him in a book. Again, I don't do that now. I haven't done that in 16 years. I haven't prayed. I haven't, I don't have any Bible. I gave them all away except for the one that I bought years ago, my first Bible. I kept it there as just there. It's kind of like torn because I put a lot of mileage into it, but it's not something that I, you know, and God reiterates, you won't find me in the Bible. You won't find me in the Bible. You won't find me in the church. You won't find me in your praises, in your worship. I am not there. You won't find me in your sacrifices. You won't find me in your offerings. I don't need any of that. I don't need any of that. I don't need any of that. I don't need your prayers. I don't need you to come to me praying. I need you to know who you are. In all you're getting, get understanding. Get to know the truth. In all you're getting, get understanding. Get to know the truth of who you are. Get to know the truth. Get to know your potential. Get to know your creativity. Get to know that you are well able. Now, things happen in life, but your mindset is what sets the trend. Your mind is that's like the motherboard of everything that happens, that where everything resides. And it's up to you to program it with whatever it is you program your mind to think or to believe. I don't like this believe, because believe is what someone else says. When you know for yourself, you're functioning on a whole different platform, because it's yours. It becomes yours. That's why when I hear something, when I read something, when I see something, I don't just take it and parrot it. Say it. No, because it's not mine. I sit, I muse, I sup, I meditate on it, until it becomes mine. And then by the time it becomes mine, I have, tailored it to my personality, because what I'm sharing with you is what I did based on my personality, based on who I am. And in all that dialogue, in all that, God said, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the false identity, the false perception, the false interpretation, the false person that they have portrayed him to be. I am sick of it. God is sick of it. He is sick of it. And to the more I listen to that, it's like, there was like some element of disdain. It's like, I am just sick of it, what human have done in order to subdue and lead people into, make people compliant, to subdue, into obedience and control. That's the whole idea. God is sick of it. He is sick of it, because like I know or knew back then, that you wanted a certain element of freedom where you could just be and enjoy life and not be worried about what's going to happen when you die, if you're going to go to some heaven or if you're going to go to hell. And again, the God that I spoke with, he says, who's told you about heaven? Who has told you about heaven? Who has led you to believe that there is a heaven? You took that upon yourself to believe that. And God was pleased with me. Now, here's the kicker. I've shared all of that with you. You see, the God that I portrayed, the God that I portrayed that spoke back to me in this dialogue, remember, we have a relationship. The God that I portrayed is the God that I created in my mind. And that is the God that I would rather have. I made it all up. I made it all up. That dialogue is what's within me. I made it all up. When I say, and God spoke to me and God, there was no God talking to me. I made it all up. It came from my brain. It came from my mind. It soothes the way I thought, I think. It brought me comfort. That's the God that I would serve. It's no different from those that wrote the Bible and said it was inspired by God. I could say those thoughts were inspired by God, and those are the thoughts that set me free. So the more I thought of that, yeah, why would God, create us with these feelings and then punish us when we do what we want to do? And why would God give us these desires and these thoughts, the ability to think, the ability to want stuff, and the ability to go places, and then implement or see us with implement guilt and condemnation, judgment. Who would do that? Who is going to do that? Who would do that? I made it all up. I made it all up. I made it all up. And the same way I made up that whole dialogue with me. Now mine coming from me was original, was authentic. But this whole thing about God said to me, I made it up. I made it up. I made up all of that. And I know when I said that God said to me, you were thinking, yeah, right. Yeah, right. She is, missing a few nuts, a new few, screws. That's what you were thinking. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, right. God told her that. That's what you were thinking. Because I said, God told me this. And a lot of people that go around, pastors, prophets, teachers, uh, bishops, and all of that. So, God said and God told me, they make it up. They make it up in their minds. They make it up. And the interesting thing about it is that it's been 16 years that we left the religious circle, and functioning without a God, no God. And our lives has been um we have grown exponentially. I mean, our lives have been just blissful. We are so much better off today than we were back then. And I don't mean, in terms of resources and so forth, because we've always had a good life. But when your mind is at peace, when your mind is sound, when your mind is lucid and restful, that is something you cannot even put a price tag on. When you have good relationships, that's why when people talk about keeping God in your marriage, I say keep him out. God doesn't want to be in your marriage, because if God is in your marriage, you know what happens? It becomes performative. You don't do this because it will offend God, or God is watching you, or this and that. No. But if you leave people to their own to themselves and let them do whatever they want, and then you know that it's genuine. Like I'm not gonna, me not cheating on my husband is not because it's not because I'm afraid or of the consequences or of offending a God. No, it's because I love my husband, and that just doesn't cross my mind. That's just, it's just not what I want to do. But it's not because of God, or like you do something and you ask for forgiveness because God says forgive 70 times 70. No, it's simply because if I offend you, I need you to know that it was never my intention to offend you, or to say this, or to do that, or whatever. It's me coming to you from my authentic self. It's not because the Bible says, that book is, like God said, you won't find me in a book. I am not in a book. That's why when you pray and a lot of prayers are not answered, or and all these cliche about God gives his greatest battles to his strongest soldiers and all. He says all of those are cliche. I'm in none of that. God is nowhere to be found in the Bible or within four walls at all. But you go out into the world and you make your presence known. You make your presence be embraced with kindness and love and attention to others, and you seek to enjoy your life. Those are the things that pleases God. Again, I don't have a God. There's no God that because when it all boils down, you come to find out that it's about you, my friend. It is all about you. Now you're told not to think highly of yourself, and to be low, to become low, that he will become higher, and all of that. That you may decrease, that he may increase, and you've been told all of that. That you're not worthy. Without God, you're nothing, and you think that you are nothing, not able to do anything, cannot even think, because it says, "Don't lean not onto your own understanding." Then what the hell are you gonna, like? Whose understanding? Like, what I'm telling you, that's not for you to do. That's for you to discover, or that's for you to know that you can also have your moment with whatever image of a God that you have in your mind. I know what image that I entertained for many years, and it was all in my imagination. So I came to understand, because till this day there is no empirical proof of a God, or so I don't even get into that. The point is, that brought me freedom, that brought me relief, that brought me peace in my mind. It brought me the comfort to know that no, there is nothing beyond. And it's a radical way of thinking, because when you think of it, and you were saying, and it's like somebody said, walk by faith, not by sight. So okay, so you walk by faith, and you just believe it is. I made up that whole thing about God talking to me. I made it up. What makes you think it's any different from what these guys made up? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all of those, Moses, Abraham, all of those, the Torah, those that wrote the five Pentateuch, whatever. what makes you think they didn't make it up? They made it up. They made it up. This whole thing, this morning, well, I had to get going. Uh, so we turned it off, and I had to prepare and so forth coming to you, with the Pope. That's all made up. And I said to my husband, I said, wow, I said, this is so much pageantry. And I said, it's like, who came up with all of that? And he laughed because he grew up as an Episcopal, and there was a lot of pageantry, there was a lot of stuff, and he was an altar boy, and did with the thing that I guess called incense, whatever. And he's used to that. He can relate to that. I grew up as a Catholic, and they also did that in Catholic church. But now that I question, is like, who made that up? Someone made it up. Someone made up all of that ritual, praise, worship, and then there's some churches, they do this dance. It's like they dance, and they're like out of their, they just dance. They just dance and jump and holler and all of that, and jump and I watched it, and I'm like, where is that coming? God is saying, I'm not in any of that. It consumes me. None of that brings me pleasure. None of it. None of it. None of it. So it brought comfort to my heart knowing that, this whole idea about heaven. First of all, he's like, who told you about heaven? Has anyone been to heaven? Who told you about that whole heaven thing? Heaven. And that I would want praises 24/7, praise and worship, and all day and all night. And I made it clear, I don't want to do that. I do not want to do that. And he's like, I'm sick of it. Those were like, to my ears, that was just harmonious. Music to my ears is like, who told you that? And of course, it comes from your intuition. But bottom line is, I made it up. That would be ideal for me. And that book, I keep pointing over here because it's my iPad. This book, the content of this book, and just like I could have said, I was inspired by God during that time of devotion, during that time of dialogue. I was inspired by God and written a book and so forth and all that kind of stuff. Well, these guys, who determined that they were inspired by God? So that's my story, my friend. And if I can think of anything else, I'm going to expose that to you now that I have gotten the courage to put it out there, because it's something that is so personal that if somebody listens to it, but as I said, I made it all up, just like they made it up. And everything that you hear when somebody says God told me, they make it up. Everybody, they make it up. They made it up, and God is sick of it. So, and I know that, again, I have a brain, you have a brain. You have the ability to think critically, to think on your own, to, to process, to reason, to reconcile information. You have the ability to do that. It's just that we're taught to lean not onto your own understanding, but I'm saying to you, my friend, in all you're getting, get understanding. Get understanding of why you believe what you believe, and how does it benefit you today, now. How is it benefiting you when you know you want this, but you are in a performative mode because you don't want to offend God, because you're guided by a book. I'm going to leave you with that, my friend, so that you can muse and meditate on that. If you have any other questions, you can write to me at info@thecynthialinuxshow.com, and I'll get back to you. Remember, I'm also a certified coach, life coach. If you have any questions, again, you can also shoot me an email and so forth. Every Thursday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we meet right here. And if you missed it today, look at these icon over here. There is Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can pick up the show 24/7. Until then, I'm going to see you next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend, whatever you do. There's still tomorrow, but have a fantastic weekend and be safe out there. Talk to you later. Ciao.